Hi everyone, it's Martyn Sibley here for the latest episode of the Iansyst podcast. Today I'm joined by Sally Ward from PurpleSpace, so thank you for joining us today, Sally.
No problem at all. Hello everyone.
So I think it'd be great really just to kick things off, Sally, if you could just give a little bit of a background to you and the work that you're up to with PurpleSpace would be a great start really.
Yep, okay, not a problem. So hello everyone. PurpleSpace is the world's only networking organisation for people, disabled people and those with a long-term health condition who are involved in disability employee networks or resource groups. We've been going for just over 2 years and were created out of the work that Kate Nash and the advisory panel did on Secrets and Big News, which was published in 2014, which was all about the language and understanding the psychology behind people not wanting to share their disability information, but also what was in employers' minds about why they needed it. And we interviewed 55 employers and 2,500 employees. Wow. And got some absolutely amazing, rich data. And I think for me, the key points that came out of that is that language is incredibly important. So businesses use the language of declaration and disclosure, but actually what that means to a lot of people is something that's, you know, it's a secret. It shouldn't be let out. Whereas using the language of sharing makes an enormous difference to people. And also understanding that the Office of National Statistics, I can't say that, has estimated that there are between 10 and 15% of people who will have a disability at some stage. So why invest lots of money and resources into new IT systems? Why not just focus on that and make sure that your policies and practices are worked around that 10 to 15%.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually when you talk about the policies and procedure and about the language. In the end, there's a lot, I think, about culture, isn't there? That there's a nurturing culture of inclusion at the end of the day.
Yeah, and those kinds of even small things can go a huge way to changing the culture of an organisation and making it a better place to be for everybody.
Brilliant. Well, it's great to hear the kind of backstory of the research. And again, I think research is such a powerful way because, you know, I think intuitively we understand, particularly in our line of work, that inclusion's not just the right thing to do, but there is the business benefit. But to have those interviews and that rich data has obviously enabled you to really engage various stakeholders to drive that forward. So I understand that you've prepared sort of 3 key areas that you'd like to share with people that are interested in either setting up or already running a staff network to help them on their way. So shall I let you take the floor? And
I'll let me see if I can remember them, Martyn. So the first thing for me is collaboration. I think all too often people can see the employee network or the staff network as being a standalone entity, and sometimes even to the extent of it is the network's responsibility to change disability policy. And actually it's not. It is the responsibility of the business to change policy, but the network has a huge role in working collaboratively with the HR team or the D&I team and helping the business understand the lived experience of disabled people and how that policy comes into practice when it's actually being used. Because an awful lot of time, people who create the policy do so with the best of intentions, but actually the lived experience is so different and all goes towards making the disabled person feel ostracized or, you know, uncomfortable. And that's the last thing that any organization wants. So the role of collaboration within the employee network is absolutely vital. Make those HR people your best friends. And the same goes for your sponsor having a good relationship with a variety of stakeholders across the business is really important. I think the next point I wanted to talk about is less is more. Now, that might seem either a heinous thing to say or make absolute sense. But when we're doing our day jobs, based on the fact that the majority of people who get involved in staff networks are going to do so voluntarily, with the work being on top of their day job, there is that kind of human need to have 10 objectives like we might have in our day jobs, and think that we will have the time and the resources and the finances to support those 10 objectives. And actually, the most successful networks that I've worked with have either done one or two things during the year really, really well. There was one particular network that was going to launch an allies program. And allies, as I'm sure you'll know, are increasingly important, especially in a disability network, where people may not want to join a disability network because they are still coming to terms with their changed circumstances. And this particular network took 9 months to create and launch the Allies program, which seems an enormously long time, but they got people from the CEO and loads and loads of senior people to sit down and talk to camera about how they felt about the network, how they were proud to be an ally. And they put all of their effort into launching the program in such a structured and professional way that the business was talking about this Allies program that they'd launched for weeks afterwards. And isn't that the kind of impact that you as a network chair or a member of the committee or just a member of the network want? You want people to be talking about your network.
Yeah.
But you don't want them to be talking about your network because you haven't delivered on any of your promises, any of your objectives, and nobody really is clear about what you are there to do.
Yeah, and people can obviously build on that. It's not to say that those other objectives you could do are never going to get done. It's about that. It sounds a bit like you get that results and early momentum, and then you can build on it at a later date as well.
Yes, exactly. It's almost like do one thing really, really well.
Yeah.
And then the rest, you'll be surprised about how much it will fall into line. I touched on sponsors and stakeholders, and that's another really important area for me. I think people who are sponsors, and they are amazing people, and we need them. We need senior leaders in any organisation to support staff networks, employee networks. But the thing to remember is that they are not subject matter experts. They may be very, very senior. They may have connections. They may be able to do all kinds of things, but actually they may not know as well as you do as the network chair what their role is, what you need them to do. So the network chair has to feel really empowered to go in and know that they are the subject matter expert, to be very clear about the objectives and the mission for the network, and also have spent time thinking about a role for that sponsor. I was talking to a network last week, and their new sponsor felt like they were in a vacuum. So they were coming up with all kinds of suggestions, one of which was, I don't like the name of the network, we need to change the name of the network, which is a huge undertaking. Whereas actually, if the network chair had been more empowered and directive and said, welcome, this is our strategy, these are our objectives, and this is the role that you can play in helping us, the network, deliver these objectives, brilliant. Because they then have a task that they know what needs to be delivered.
Yeah, that's really cool. But obviously I will list them down on the copy that goes with the podcast, so people can kind of look through the three of them as well, and then, you know, get their bearings with them in writing. Last of all, really, Sally, just if people want to get in contact with you, how can they best find you?
Oh, very simple. Sally@purplespace.org.
Brilliant. That's great. Well, thank you for your time today, Sally.
No problem at all.
10 minutes
Lovely to talk
fly
to you.
by. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of value for people to consider and start to take action and yeah, create more inclusion in the workplace, which is what we're trying to push for.
Definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Take care
Thank you,
then.
Martyn.
Bye-bye.
Bye.